Hey, welcome to Real Talk with Mr. Richard, a video podcast sponsored by 360 Dance Festival. Today, August 21st of 2020 at 12 p.m., there will be a free webinar hosted by the YPAD organization, that is the Youth Protection Advocates in Dance organization, in coordination with More Than Just Great Dancing, on sex abuse in dance. And it is a sex abuse prevention through education webinar that is free to the public. You do not have to be a member of YPAD, and you do not have to be a member of the More Than Just Great Dancing affiliate studios to participate. If you go to certification at ypadnow.com and register, even if you can't attend the event, you will get a recording of the webinar, and it will be hosted live for you on the website so that you can listen at any time. Now let's pick up the conversation with YPAD's founder, Miss Leslie Scott Zanovitch. All right, listeners, welcome. So today we have a fantastic guest that I've had the pleasure of meeting in person multiple times and working with at the One Family event is when we first met, and then later 360. And who knew when we did the One Family event, I was eventually going to own 360. So
I know.
It's so interesting how time flies and how things change. But I am so grateful for us to be hosting Miss Leslie Scott today. Welcome, Leslie.
Thank you so much. I remember so vividly walking into the faculty room of One Family and meeting you for the first time. And I was there teaching the Spirit Swag seminars and also hip hop. And me being like, this guy's got such spirit swag. Like he is Spirit Swag incarnate.
Oh, that is so swag, because that swag and Mr. Richard, I just feel like those two words never get put in the same sentence.
But Spirit Swag, that's the style and fashion of your character and soul. You were born with it. You don't have to buy it. So
fantastic.
You've got that.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna make a note on that Spirit Swag. I'm gonna keep that one for myself. But thank you so much, Leslie, for taking the time to talk to the listeners and share your knowledge and your expertise with all of the community that's listening in. So let's give them a little bit of your backstory. Where did you train? Where did you grow up? How did you get into dance as a profession?
Well, I was not a studio kid. I grew up in Tucson, Arizona. My influence was actually hip hop culture before it was called hip hop culture, because I grew up in the 70s and the 70s, 80s, and, where the Bronx was just booming out, popping, locking, breaking, and, all of the music and the political rap. And I was a part of a couple crews, and I would always sneak across the border to go to Nogales to the Mexican B-boy culture was alive and well. And so I really did not grow up as a studio kid. What ended up happening is I was ciphering in a circle at school, and a woman who owned a dance studio was there to choreograph the High School Musical Guys and Dolls. And she saw me dancing, and she was like, hey, where do you train at? And I was like, what are you talking about? I don't take in a studio. And she offered to bring me tap shoes if I would audition for the tap portion of Guys and Dolls. And so, long story short, she started to become my mentor. And when I turned 17, she asked if I would start teaching a youth street dance class. And that's how I got into teaching.
Awesome. And for you guys that have never gotten a chance to take Leslie's class, she's full out. That's it. That's it. It's just one level. It's just one level, and you're going to meet her there. Like, she's not going to come down. You're going to meet her there, and you're going to have a great time on the way. She only works full out, and that is it. Not only comes out in your dancing, but it comes out in your nature and in your spirit as well, because you are you wear so many hats. And before we start diving into those hats, I want you to give a little bit of also backstory for YPAD. And YPAD, for the listeners that don't know, is Youth Protection Advocates in Dance. And I had never heard of it until the One Family event. And wow, were my eyes opened after that first One Family event. So can you talk, give us a little bit of how you, why you created YPAD and why it's so important, especially right now. It's always been important, but it's so precious right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So after my early years of dance, I started a group called the HipHop Coalition at Arizona State University. And I was, teaching in Arizona as adjunct faculty at ASU and Phoenix College and running the coalition. And my heart for kind of the ethos and the foundation of it was very much that intersectionality of hip hop and social justice, and really just dance and social justice, using our movement as a message, using the music as a message, using the experience and the process of rehearsal and artistic direction, what it takes, the hours it takes to create a show, as community building, and to really minister to the souls of what people are having happen in their greater life, and how dance can be a vehicle for that. When I moved to Hollywood, California, that quickly was disintegrated. I was told in order for me to succeed as a professional dancer, I needed to lose weight. I needed to show my body more. I needed to pick more ratchet music. I needed to be more sexual. And, as somebody that, when you move to Hollywood or you move to New York, or you sacrifice so much to pursue your dreams, I think it does put you in a vulnerable position to maybe not have the agency that you would normally have, because the messages from these people that you admire, that you look up to, that you aspire to be like, have a lot of power. So this was, my agent, all of the choreographers above me, the owners of the dance studios I was working at. It was the same message. And I really dived into sexualization, objectification. My choreography changed, and kind of, when you peel back the layers of that, the external self is success, because yes, unfortunately, our culture, for many reasons, worships those things. It's really more about the aesthetic on the outside than what it is on the inside. But on the inside, I was crumbling. I had fallen into an eating disorder. I had become, my self-esteem was very, very minimal, very codependent on what the external world thought about me, thought about my art. The authentic, organic nature of the driving force for my art changed from trying to make an impact and a change in social justice and in things that I felt I was very passionate about, which at the time in Arizona, one of them was systemic racism. At the time I was married to, my ex-husband is a Black man. I was married to him. So I was very passionate about using our movement to raise the frequency on the realities of that. I mean, this is back in the 90s. And it really derailed me. And I realized it wasn't just me it derailed many of us. The culture in Hollywood was one of unhealth. There was a lot of kind of interconnected abuses that were normalized and very, pervasive and insidious in the culture in the Hollywood dance industry. And because I was teaching at two schools in Hollywood, one of them is Edge Performing Arts. I taught there for 14 years. And the other one is Millennium Dance Complex. I was on faculty there for 12 years. And then I was traveling globally. I've taught in 22 countries. I started to realize what was happening in Hollywood was permeating to the rest of the world as what we're aspiring to do and be in dance. So when those things started to happen to me, I really had to look at how it was trickling down to the youth, because we would, our classes started to become packed with very, very young children, very, very talented young children. And it's one thing when you are experiencing these things as an adult who has a fully formed prefrontal cortex and you're supposed to have logic and reason. Right. But when you start to impose sexualization, objectification, the idea that pushing through injuries is something to be applauded. Like, oh, you're so beast that you just did that performance on a 3rd-degree sprained ankle, high five. These things that lead to lifelong chronic health problems. I really wanted to start the conversation. It started with me shifting, and YPAD became a vision of mine when I was actually teaching at an orphanage in Mexico. I really knew I needed a change. I really knew that I had lost myself in Hollywood. It sounds so cliche, but it's really, I lost who I was. I lost my path. And my art was no longer for me. It was for that next big booking. It was for that next artist to see who I was, so that I could stay relevant in the circles. And there was a lot of anxiousness, a lot of anxiety. It was no longer joyful. And again, it wasn't just me. I was like looking around. I'm like, oh, everybody's anxious. Everybody's stressed out. Everybody's dieting down, and nobody's. I didn't have any examples of health around me. And so when I was at this orphanage, I had this opportunity to choreograph a Christmas show, and the children had never had a visitor in the arts. I was their first exposure to dance. These are children who have suffered just incredible traumas. And I saw what I knew always to be true about dance, that dance is medicine. Dance is therapy. I saw that I was more than just eye candy behind a celebrity that was treated like, the algae eaters of the food chain on the job. I saw that I had medicine in me to administer to people who really, really needed that purity and that therapeutic impact of dance. And these kids didn't care what my resume were. They didn't care if my stomach was flat. They didn't care if I packed the classes. They didn't care how many, followers I had on social media. It was such it was like water in the desert for me. And what had happened is, at the same time I was there, I got an email from my agent saying that that CeeLo wanted to direct book me and would give me $500 extra to dress in a way that was basically nude. And it just was this moment in my life where I had these two different paths set ahead of me of where did I want to take my talents and my limited time I have left here on earth. Where did I want to invest that? And YPAD was born out of that. And I knew from the pushback I received in Hollywood, the pushback I received, the ostracization, the blackballing to even try to talk about these things, because these are very much connected with finances and commodification of people in general, oppression of people in general. Thrives because there is a material, it's lucrative. So I got therapists and doctors on board with our programs to do evidence-based research, so that I had that, what I knew viscerally to be true. I had that support of credentialed doctors and psychologists, and then eventually we created what is known today as the YPAD certification. So a safety course, a wellness course, so you can take both of them. It's very comprehensive. It covers emotional, physical, and sexual health of children in dance. And I think the education very much crosses over to how we also can be healthy educators, and we can be healthy role models of what does that holistic health even look like. So that's the journey with YPAD, and I started that in 2012. And then we launched certification in 2017. And then in 2019, our mutual angel friend, Misty Lown, which is the reason you and I know each other. Yes. She was very gracious, and she took over YPAD to continue the mission, because it just became, on a global level, much bigger than anything me, my husband, and my little toddler at the time could manage. Right. So she is the new and current leader, and I still sit on the advisory board, and I'm still very much involved, and I'm very blessed that Misty invites and appreciates and collaborates with me still on many projects.
She's a remarkable person. And yes. Not only is she remarkable, she has nurtured, innovated, she has fostered, she has groomed, and she's fertilized so much of the healthy culture in dance, not just from our students, but the studio owner, the vendors, the yes. participants, the costume companies, the competition companies, conventions. She has just had this way of pulling the industry together for a purpose for us to, like we had said off air, to be better, because we can be. We are
Yes, when
absolutely
we know better, we can, I mean, Maya Angelou, that quote will forever, when you and I are long and gone, when we know better, we do better. Maya Angelou, that quote will forever be valid and be profound. And Misty, Misty was YPAD before YPAD became YPAD. And, it's just, it is so important, like her innovation and her leadership, and I think also her unwillingness to compromise, but to do it in a way that is not aggressive, to do it in a way that shows we can be successful at what we do. We can make money, which we should act our wage. We should make money, and we can keep youth happy, healthy, and safe in dance. It doesn't need to be an and or.
Correct. And that is such a pioneer, in a sense, in our industry, because like you were saying, Hollywood and LA, that scene is different than it is anywhere else in the country. It's different than it is anywhere else in the world. And if we have so many of our dancers move there for their big break, and they move there for that dream to make it big. And sometimes as their mentors and advisors, we don't want to discourage their passion to go after what they should pursue and what their heart is telling them to do. But sometimes we do that. We don't give them all the tools they need to be successful mentally and physically. Yes. Because we know that they can do it. We know they have the talent. We know they have the work ethic. They have all the tools that they need to be successful. And sometimes we don't have that open door to talk about the mental toughness that you have to have. There's a standard that you have to have for yourself, because at the end of the night, you have to sleep. You have to know that what you're doing means something to you, and that you didn't compromise self, because yourself is always with you. And I think that's where we see a little bit of whereas I know as an educator, I can come up better, and not so much to talk the dancers out of going to LA to pursue a career, but let them know that there's another side that they have to be ready to dig their heels in and resist against. And with that, with any resistance, with anything that works against the norm, there's going to be pushback. I mean, we are living, like, turn on the news today, you can see you can see resistance coming from many different places, all from many different areas in life. And we have for so long in dance just kind of taken what we've been handed. This is what you've been portioned out, either take it or leave it. And it's very much been one of the taglines I say is that we have been groomed to believe a crumb is a buffet. Oh, awesome! That one's becoming a quote. That one is becoming a quote. And we've also been groomed to believe that there's only a limited amount of crumbs. So we all have to scurry and kick each other and step on each other. Oh my gosh, I need to get mine. I need to get mine. And then we're told that that's supposed to satisfy us. That a crumb is a buffet. And it really is demoralizing, and it can become very degrading. And I'm really keyed in, and I've worked for years with dancers around trauma, and you shouldn't have to pay with trauma in order to access a career in dance or to reach your aspirations in dance. So I think that the boundaries is something that and is something that's not talked about enough. And that's why when people move to Los Angeles or New York or wherever it is, you're right. It's like they're going to make it, and and even like how to be an ally to that person is don't be on them. When are you going to make it? Why haven't you booked your first music video yet? It's like, because maybe I don't want to objectify myself to do so, because maybe I don't want to work with that choreographer because that choreographer does not treat me in a humane way. But when there's that pressure and expectation to quote unquote make it, that is when we kind of can become like a frog in a slow boiling pot. And your boundaries are like, oh, I'll just do this, or okay, I'll just do that, and but not realizing that every compromise is chipping away at your moral compass and at your self identity, and it just can really go sideways pretty quickly. I've seen it. I mean, I saw it for 2 decades. I saw it in myself, and then in mentoring so many other people. So, yeah, I mean, you're right on. And I think that
YPAD is coming at it through the education lens. We don't believe that shame and education can live in the same wheelhouse. I think that one of the most important things for me when I facilitated the YPAD certification, when we would travel and teach it, now it's online, is to really drive into teachers that it is okay to be self-reflective and to say, you know what, I learned new information and now I realize that choice I made was not the best choice. That doesn't mean that was not a good choice. That doesn't mean you're not good. That doesn't mean it erases all of the hours that you spent loving on children and mentoring children. I think that there's a level of humility when we talk about these things, as it's emotional, physical, sexual health of dancers. It can kind of disarm people because we've all made poor choices because there's not a lot of education on these things. And not only that, when you're talking about countercultural, the recipe to go viral and to be successful is actually participating in a lot of behaviors that are not health-filled. Yes. So it's like not only are we not having access to this education, we're being told by the greater masses that this is actually the way to go. This is what gets you viral. This is likable. This is, this has currency. And YPAD's pulling the layers back and saying, but what's the debt of that? And I just think that it's been a journey, because when you want to talk about like what's happening right now, when we're talking about being an ally, to people of color, and we're talking about, equity and systemic racism, and now it's kind of a moment where I think we can reckon with things, and more of that. We need to hold space and not put our head in the sand and be afraid, because we might face that we ourselves have been culpable in those things. Right. And that is where we need to have tolerance as a society, not to just cancel people out on their growth journey, because people are on all different places on their growth journey. If we really want change, we have to be able to find compassion for the people who are ignorant. And I don't mean ignorant in a put down. Literally, the word ignorant means people do not know better. People don't know better. And if we're not willing to sit at the table with those people, and we just want it to all be an echo chamber of people of our beliefs, people of that co-sign our own biases, how are we going to change anything? We're not.
Have you ever considered running for public office? I really think that I'm pretty sure that this is what this is what our country needs on so many levels. And I love hearing you speak, because the way that you are not only so eloquent, but the depth of what you're talking about is not surface level. It goes so much deeper, and you're touching on so many great points. As teachers and as leaders in the classroom, we feel like we have to be perfect. And there are many a night that I drive home with the radio off. I was like, okay, that was not great. It was not the best class. It was not the best night of teaching, but next week or next time, let's make it better. And admitting that you were wrong, or that was a bad choice. It was a bad choice. And I apologize. And I don't want you to feel A, B, C, and D because I made a bad choice. I'm accepting that I made that bad choice. I'm accepting that I could possibly have made you feel a way that I did not intend for you to feel. And I want you to allow me the opportunity to try to rectify it and move forward and move forward. Put state what needs to be stated and move forward, and let your actions show what you meant. And that this is how we grow. This is how we grow.
It is. I really think that in general, I personally think in general, all educators of children should go through trauma recovery.
Absolutely. Agreed.
We all are carrying around some form of trauma. Some of it is more complex than others. Some of it is epigenetic trauma, which is generational trauma. And I think that when we work with children and we mentor children, I think just as human beings, we're going to have moments where we act that trauma out. And we come from, we're activated in a way, or we're triggered in a way, and I know for sure that my years of self-sexualizing and self-objectifying myself and presenting, the type of music I used, and how I just, my whole brand, I know I know now that I was acting out my sexual trauma. I'm a survivor of child sexual abuse, and I'm a survivor of adult sexual assault. And I've also experienced sexual harassment in the dance industry. And I didn't see it at the time that I was literally acting out my trauma. And then I was allowing youth in my space. At Edge and Millennium, they would let all children come and take classes, regardless of the song. And I was really not in a space to hold that level of that level of responsibility for youth, because I was still stuck in some of my own immature ways of being, because and not because I'm a bad person, not because I don't care about kids, but because I had unresolved trauma. And I feel like as a society, trauma is not unique. This is like that idea that trauma is, that very rarely people experience trauma, or trauma is only if you've gone and fought a war. That, right. PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, is not something that only happens after, experiencing the battlefield. Many of us in our lives growing up have experienced our own battlefields. And if we don't find health and healing, it continues to vibrate in wherever we permeate our energies. And I just think that is one thing I love about the YPAD certification, is that it gives a moment for us as educators to stop and also find healing for ourselves. I don't want just healing for children, because the children we teach will never receive the best of us if we don't, first of all, heal us. And that is, and that's the best defense. That is the best defense to keeping youth. The tagline for YPAD is keep youth happy, healthy, and safe in dance. And you know how I do that? I keep me happy, healthy, and safe in dance. And for me, and I'm going to speak for me, that turned out that it was not focusing so hyper on what I looked like, my eating, my viral following, my booking, like the resume. That obsessive focus was it was the opposite of holistic health for me. And I just think that that's a beautiful thing, which is a journey that all people should be on. But obviously our playground is dance. So right. This is where we get to kind of edify the landscape and edify the garden and groom it and prune it and plant the seeds, because look, it's shifting, and it has to shift. It has to shift. And I don't think we shift, Richard, by pointing names and name calling. Well, look at them, they use this song, and look at them, and da-da-da. We shift by just doing it ourselves. Right. And then people come in our space and they will literally feel the difference.
Yes. That is it's so true. I was just talking to Pam Simpson a little bit earlier. Everyone that I've talked to this week for the podcast and for what we're doing have basically touched on these points, meeting people where they are to take them where you want them to go. But if you can't meet them where they are because there's so many rocks in your backpack that you can't stand up, then you have to take the backpack off. Like you have to take the backpack off so that you can go on the journey that you're trying to get people to go on. And so beautiful that, on my end, I'm just getting to speak to you right now, but I've heard everyone speak this week, and it just resonates so much with what we're doing. And before we run out of time, you are participating in an amazing event tomorrow that is available on my social media. And if I'm a good boy, I will get this edited and up later on tonight so that this can go out as reinforcement for the event that you're participating in tomorrow. So let's talk to the listeners a little bit about the event tomorrow.
Okay, thank you so much for this. I so appreciate the opportunity. All right, so inside YPAD certification safety course, we have a module on sex abuse prevention, intervention, and reporting and trauma recovery. And Misty and I, because I don't know if any of the listeners have seen Athlete A yet, but Athlete A was a Netflix documentary that came out, and it took us step by step what happened with the Larry Nassar case with USAG, and it really was a tsunami of survivors in dance that have come forward to YPAD. I mean, I ran the sex abuse division in YPAD for 7 years as the executive director, and trust me, it has been there all along, but it's been a tsunami. And what we really wanted to do was we wanted to pull out this module, and we wanted to facilitate it with the doctors and therapists on our panel to the world, live and for free. It's going to be a webinar. It's Friday, August 21st. It's going to be 12 to 2:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. We have Dr. Christina Donaldson, who's a clinical psychologist, Dr. Tomi-Ann Roberts, who is a specialist in sexualization objectification, Sammi Rader, who is a social worker and works with survivors, Katie Gatlin, who's also a clinician, a mental health provider who works with trauma. We have Lisa Phelps, who was my co-creator of YPAD certification. She's a lawyer, and she also works in interpersonal violence in the California University school systems. And we have Wade Robson, who many people obviously know Wade Robson as a survivor of sex abuse, and then me. And we're going to be facilitating the education. We're going to talk about what is trauma-informed language, how can we be allies. We're going to talk about what actually is sex abuse, contact and non-contact sex abuse, because there is such a thing as non-contact sex abuse. We're going to talk about grooming, how to recognize it, the warning signs of sex abuse, how to take a disclosure, how to be an ally so that if someone does confide to you, understanding some responses so that we don't inadvertently re-traumatize somebody who's trying to confide in us or go to us for help. This is going to be for youth and also as adults. The webinar is just for adults, but I'm saying the way that we would take a disclosure from a child versus an adult. And then we're going to do a section on how to report. What is a mandated reporter? How do you report? What are the legal requirements? And then we're going to close it up with hope and for trauma recovery, because I'm proof that there is hope for recovery, and that people who experience trauma usually go on, if they get recovery, to live amazing, vibrant lives that contribute to society. And then Wade is going to have a special Q&A section where he just shares about his trauma recovery journey. And then we're going to open up the floor to the global dance community. And you can submit questions by going to certification at ypadnow.com. So we'll have a full Q&A with our amazing panel. I mean, these are people that have been working on the topics of sex abuse and abuse in dance way before it was trending. And I respect them deeply. These are people that my higher power, God, angel, Allah, Buddha, Jesus, Krishna, Mother Nature brought into my life to sit on the advisory panel. And they are truly some of the most insightful, loving people that care about dance with all their heart, like probably every single listener. And, I know we're going to close here. I want to just say that this is not a protest on dance. Dance in itself is so healing. It is joyful. It's amazing. This is the reason why, as a community, we cannot ignore sex abuse in dance, is because of how amazing dance is. We don't want families to think that it's not safe to put their kids in dance. We don't want another story coming out in the news. Sex abuse in dance can be prevented through education, and how many things can be prevented just through education. Right. So this is an opportunity for us not just to post, but to attend, to be humble, to be self-reflective, and to do the work of the education. So it's a message of hope. I know that this content can be very activating. It can bring up, for survivors and even those of us that love survivors, it can be, activate difficult emotions and even difficult memories. And that's one of the reasons why this will be, it will be recorded, so that if people need to kind of do it incrementally because you need to take care of yourself and how you engage with it, then we invite you to do that. You don't have to come tomorrow and be with us live to have access to this education. So that's what tomorrow is going to be. And I have to say, it is really, for me, being in the trenches of this work as an advocate for so many years in dance, we already have over 700 people registered. And this is like the blessing of my lifetime, to be able to sit on a panel with people like this to try to prevent this level of suffering to happen in our industry. And to just keep that message that dance is happy, dance is safe, and dance is healthy. And the majority of us are here to do that. And what we need to do is we need to get educated on how to make sure that very small percentage that is planting the wrong seeds, that we know how to rise to the occasion to prevent that.
That's phenomenal. And 700 people, that's amazing. And I'm glad that glad that I'm one of those 700 people, and I'm looking forward to it. So just real quick, the website for YPAD is ypad.org, or is it YPAD?
It's ypadnow.com. So YPADnow.com, ypadnow.com. And if you go onto our @YPADNow social media handles, we have posts, and all you have to do is they're in the post, it's going to give a description. Click on the registration link. And even if you can't show up, register, because then that's how you're going to get all the resources and the recording. And then the module and the recording will be available on the YPAD website for free. We're not going to take it down. For the life of YPAD, Misty has decided, because she is such a generous soul, that there should be there's no excuses. There's no excuses anymore. We have to get educated on this, because one thing, Mr. Richard, also is that, sex abuse is impacting people of color at a very high rate.
Yes.
And one of the issues is that because people of color are also dealing with so much cumulative trauma, the bandwidth for trauma is so difficult to then put them in a position to come out and face the victim shaming and the victim blaming. So it is even harder in some instances for someone who is transgender, for someone who's in the LGBTQ community, for someone who's a person of color. If you are already in a community that is being so deeply marginalized, and then these abuses happen to you, it decreases even the chance that you will have access to trauma recovery. And one of the first ways people get trauma recovery is for us to know, if somebody comes to us, that we don't shut them down. And it can be something as simple as asking too many questions. It could be something as simple as, well, why didn't you tell me sooner? It is so nuanced. So that's why this is tricky. It requires education, but you don't have to be a clinical psychologist to do better.
This is true.
Yes, you don't. So, yeah.
This information is going to it will be live on the description in the podcast. It will be live on the description on YouTube as well. Awesome. I'm committing to you. We'll get it done before tomorrow.
You and you're like, you said I have 62 to edit. I was just like, Mr. Richard.
It's this community of people that we are bringing together is long overdue. People that genuinely love each other and love what we do, and we don't want to see something like this take us off the rails. Me moving some things around on my schedule is a very small contribution to the number of people that we can help.
And you know what we don't want to do? We don't want to sensationalize this. This isn't a scandal. This isn't the next sex abuse reality show. Like, we have to model to the rest of the world, how does sex abuse deal with this topic? And we have to deal with it through the trauma-informed lens. We cannot be reckless. This isn't the latest tea. This is people suffering. This can cause long life, chronic illness as well. Trauma lives in our cells. It's physiological. And our community is so good. We are so intelligent, and it's just time that we get the energy to have the courage to normalize this education among us.
Right. Education is freedom. It is freedom.
Yes,
and
it
we
is.
can do it. We can do it. So
we are doing it.
We are.
We just did it.
Listeners, check out the links in the description below. And until next time, this has been Real Talk with Mr. Richard, sponsored by 360 Dance Festival.